Your Excellency, Mr. S.M. Krishna, Minister for External Affairs, Republic of India, Mr. Sanjay Singh, Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Republic of India, Professor Tomiko, Ambassador at Large, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Singapore, Dr. T.C.A. Raghavan, High Commissioner of India to Singapore, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. On behalf of the Institute of South Asian Studies, ISAS, I warmly welcome you to the public lecture. It is now my pleasure to invite Professor Tan Tai Yong, Director of ISAS, to deliver the opening remarks. Professor Tan, please.
Excellency, Mr. S.M. Krishna, India's External Affairs Minister, Indian High Commissioner Dr. Raghavan, Professor Tomiko, Excellencies, friends, ladies and gentlemen. We are delighted to welcome the Minister back to the Institute of South Asian Studies. ISAS has benefited from a closed-door session with the Minister last year, and I'm very happy that he has once again chosen ISAS as the venue for his lecture on a topic that is of immense interest to Singapore. The Minister will be speaking on India's external environment and current foreign policy challenges. Our distinguished speaker, Mr. Krishna, assumed office as External Affairs Minister in May 2009. In a public career spanning 4 decades, he notably served for nearly 5 years as the Chief Minister of the state of Karnataka, whose capital, Bangalore, is often called India's Silicon Valley. He was also for over 3 years the Governor of Maharashtra, whose capital city, Mumbai, is India's commercial and financial hub. Mr. Krishna has also had the rare distinction of having served as member of both houses of the Karnataka State Legislature and also both houses of India's Parliament, and is currently a member of the Rajya Sabha, India's upper house of Parliament. We are indeed fortunate to have the Minister speak to us today, as the breadth and depth of India's regional and global interests and concerns are very evident from 2 aspects. First, some new developments in India's relations with its neighbours, and second, no less important, the wide compass of the Minister's overseas travels. Indeed, quite a lot of developments have been taking place under the Minister's watch. The Minister, for instance, has just paid a visit to Egypt, and he was in Beijing 2 weeks earlier. And he's now in Singapore to update India's envoys in this part of the world. Singapore and New Delhi are in the midst of a review process designed to enhance the usefulness of the CECA. In other domains, Pakistan has just announced its intention to give India the most favoured nation status under WTO's guidelines. Also, India and China have set up a new working mechanism on border affairs and have agreed to discuss maritime security. All these developments have regional and global repercussions, and surely we in Singapore and East Asia have a vital interest, indeed a vital stake in the long-term stability, or shall I say a positive predictability of India's ties with both China and Pakistan. Equally important to us is the way in which India interacts with other powers like the United States, Russia, and countries in the Middle East. India's stand on global concerns like climate change and the Doha round of trade talks is of more than academic interest to us. Obviously, India will have a crowded agenda of foreign policy priorities and challenges, and 2 of Mr. Krishna's hobbies, tennis and yoga, should be of great help to him in addressing these challenges with the required vigor of body and mind. Before I hand over the podium to the Minister, I would like to take the opportunity to welcome Professor Tomiko, who has kindly agreed to moderate the Q&A following the Minister's lecture. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome the Minister to deliver his lecture. Minister, please.
His Excellency, Mr. Tamiko, Ambassador at Large, Professor Santai Yong, High Commissioner Mr. Raghavan, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today to interact with all of you through the platform of the platform of the Institute of South Asian Studies. In a relatively short span of its existence, the Institute of South Asian Studies has established a formidable reputation internationally as a major center for vigorous and objective study of South Asia from a policy perspective. I see many familiar faces in the audience. This, given the proximity of ties between India and Singapore, is hardly surprising. As you are all aware, our Prime Minister had visited Singapore only a few months earlier. May I say how deeply touched public opinion in India was by the installation of a Nehru bust and marker in Singapore. And I would like, in particular, to thank His Excellency Tamiko for all the initiatives he took in seeing that this idea came to fruition. We are now looking forward to the visit of the Singapore Prime Minister, His Excellency Mr. Lee Loong, to India later this summer. I am confident and hopeful that these two high-level visits within a relatively short period of time will provide a substantive content to our bilateral agenda. The topic of my address today is rather broad. This necessarily implies that I have to be selective. This, however, does not mean that what are not covered by me are not our policy priorities. Given the focus of the Institute of South Asian Studies, I think it would be appropriate today to look at India's engagement with our immediate and extended neighborhood. The challenges facing our foreign policy are directly related to this process of engagement. I would begin by recalling the vision of our first Prime Minister, Pandit Nehru. During a visit to Singapore in March 1946, he had spoken of Singapore becoming the place where Asian unity is forged, and had also gone on to say, in the future, the peoples of Asia must pull together for their own good as well as the good and the freedom of the world. The biggest development over the past 2 decades in our continent has been the evolution of the process of Asian reintegration. Our engagement with our international partners, both in our immediate and extended neighborhood, is testimony to this phenomenon. The rising profile of India as a major economic powerhouse and the reciprocal interest of the international community in engaging with India in a broad-based manner has added a significant global dimension to India's external engagement. In our immediate neighborhood of South Asia, India has been driven by the vision of encouraging regional integration to bring about peace and prosperity for more than 1.5 billion people living in this region. As part of this vision, India has been implementing a policy of asymmetric engagement in providing greater market access to our neighbors, which enables integration in a mutually beneficial manner. This is one of the most significant challenges facing our foreign policy today. Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh articulated India's vision of regional economic integration at the last SAARC summit held in Maldives in November last year. This vision is based on enhanced intra-regional trade, both in goods and services, investment flows, and enhanced regional transport and communication links. He announced virtual elimination of sensitive lists affecting exports of all least developed SAARC countries to India. New initiatives for capacity building and to enhance the sense of a South Asian identity were also announced. A significant initiative taken by India in the SAARC process was the creation of a South Asia Forum. The first meeting of the forum was hosted by India in September 2011 on the theme Integration in South Asia, moving towards the South Asian Economic Union. We are able to engage for the first time representatives from government, academics, civil society, and business persons on the same platform to discuss the future of SAARC. And I am confident that this initiative will contribute significantly on charting the future direction of SAARC. In our bilateral interaction with our immediate neighbors, we have sought to provide substance to this vision of South Asian integration through a number of initiatives. India and Afghanistan have established a strategic partnership during the visit of President Karzai to India in October last year. Our historical and civilizational relationship with Afghanistan is being further strengthened by India actively engaged in the development and reconstruction of Afghanistan. We have already committed $2 billion for this purpose. Afghanistan joined the SAARC community in 2010. We stand committed to help Afghanistan integrate into the regional economy of South Asia. The ambitious gas pipeline project from Turkmenistan in Central Asia to India through Afghanistan and Pakistan, known as TAPI, is an example of this vision. Over the past 2 years, we have made major strides in reducing the trust deficit between India and Pakistan. We hosted the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Her Excellency Hina Rabbani Khan, in New Delhi in July last year, and planned to visit Islamabad in the summer of this year. We affirmed the importance of carrying forward the dialogue process with a view to resolving peacefully all outstanding issues through constructive and result-oriented engagement. We agreed that terrorism poses a continuing threat to peace and security and reiterated the firm and undiluted commitment of our two countries to fight and eliminate this scourge in all its forms and manifestations. We welcome Pakistan's efforts to normalize trade relations with India by moving from positive to negative lists and their eventual elimination. The Prime Ministers of India and Pakistan during their meeting in November last year reaffirmed that people are at the heart of the relationship between the two countries and that people-to-people contacts and cultural exchanges should be promoted. I accompanied Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh on his historic visit to Bangladesh in September last year. The orientation of our discussions was directed towards creating a mutually beneficial framework for raising the living standards of people of our two countries. Two historic accords and 8 other bilateral documents were signed, including the landmark Framework Agreement on Cooperation and Development and widening the landscape between the two countries significantly. India attaches the highest priority to further strengthening the existing cooperation with Nepal. In this spirit, India has continued close consultations with the government of Nepal and the major political parties with a view to support Nepal's transition to a democratic, peaceful and prosperous state. This was underscored during the visit of the Prime Minister of Nepal to India in October last year. Our two countries share a special relationship that has granted Nepal preferential economic treatment and provided Nepalese in India the same economic and educational opportunities as Indian citizens. Many of you are familiar with the extremely close relations between India and Sri Lanka. During my visit to Sri Lanka in January this year, I had the opportunity to interact with the political leaders in that country across the spectrum. There was consensus on the increased Indian role in assisting the economic reconstruction and development of Sri Lanka, especially in the fields of health, education, housing, and infrastructure development sectors. I had the opportunity to hand over the first lot of housing units constructed under India's assistance to the beneficiaries at Jaffna. India has conveyed in no unclear terms that it is committed to the unity, sovereignty, and territorial integrity of Sri Lanka. It is our hope that the vision and leadership that resulted in an end to armed conflict will now be employed in the quest for genuine political reconciliation. We look forward to progress in the ongoing dialogue process in order to address this issue in a timely manner. We will continue to work with the government of Sri Lanka to take this process forward in a spirit of partnership and cooperation. Our priorities in relations with Bhutan are similarly driven by mutually beneficial socio-economic interaction. India is committed to assisting Maldives with its developmental cooperation across diverse sectors. The positive role played by India during the recent political turmoil in the Maldives has been welcomed by all political parties in that country, and we are confident that the roadmap that has been agreed to will enable the hard-working people of this beautiful country to soon return to their normal lives, especially in the tourism sector, where a vast majority of Maldivians are employed. China is another immediate neighbor. It is a priority in India's foreign policy. We have attempted to establish a strategic and cooperative partnership with China. A stronger India-China economic relationship can make a direct contribution to the quality of life of over 2 billion people. China has emerged as the largest trading partner of India, and our engagement with China is now multifaceted. Naturally, as between any two large countries, there are areas of convergence as well as fields of divergence between our nations. We will continue to engage China in a constructive and forward-looking manner so that both countries can achieve a win-win situation. It is true that there are some differences between our countries, such as on the boundary question. Here, we will maintain dialogue with China with the objective of minimizing such differences on the bridging them. It may be relevant for me to convey that we have one of the longest borders with China, and it is gratifying to note that there hasn't been many problems on the border. On the whole, the border between China and India is it's tranquil and is balanced. Myanmar is our land bridge to the countries of the ASEAN. Today, winds of change are blowing through Myanmar. We have close political, economic and people-to-people ties of long-standing with Myanmar. Our relations will therefore assume even greater prominence for mutual benefit. The challenges to the process of integrating the economies of South Asia cannot be understated. These challenges are rooted in geography, history, and economics. However, we in South Asia have to only look eastward to our extended neighborhood to see how these challenges can be successfully addressed. I believe it was about a decade ago that the term India fever was coined in Singapore to describe the growing momentum then developing in our bilateral relations. Over the past few years, our relationship with Singapore has also catalyzed our relations with the whole of ASEAN. It would therefore be true to say that there is an equivalent ASEAN fever in India now. A few weeks ago, I hosted a successful exchange in New Delhi with colleagues from ASEAN on a whole gamut of issues. This was held under the platform provided by the Delhi Dialogue, and we were fortunate to have 6 ministers from the region. The Delhi Dialogue itself is the outcome of a very fruitful relationship built up by think tanks and business organizations in Singapore and India. A very large number of initiatives and projects are under discussion and are at different stages of finalization as we move towards commemorating the 20 years of our dialogue partnership with ASEAN by means of a commemorative summit in Delhi in December this year. How do we enhance connectivity and push forward the ongoing process of economic integration are the two large questions which will form the subtext of the commemorative summit. The summit itself takes place in the backdrop of a changing architecture in our region through the East Asia Summit process. We recognize the centrality of ASEAN in this process. We see a wider consultative structure in place with the inclusion of the United States of America and the Russian Federation. As you are aware, we have a strategic partnership with both United States and Russia. This underlines our multifaceted relationship with them. The ASEAN-India Commemorative Year 2012 has a rather full calendar ahead, including ASEAN-India Car Rally, interactive expedition of sail and training ship Sudarshini to ASEAN countries to trace traditional trade routes, and holding of marker events to reinforce connectivity between India and the ASEAN. The challenges to greater economic integration between us, driven by sentiments of protectionism, have been addressed through the implementation of the India-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement on goods. India and ASEAN have put in place one of the largest free trade agreements on goods. We hope that the early conclusion of a similar free trade agreement in services and investments between India and the ASEAN will significantly broaden and deepen this process. In our extended neighborhood to our west, we enjoy traditionally close political, economic and cultural linkages with the countries of the Gulf region. These countries are among our largest trading partners. Our trade with the Gulf Cooperation Council countries amounts to $130 billion during the past year. Secondly, close to 50% of our crude oil requirements is met by this region. Thirdly, the region hosts more than 6 million Indians who contribute to the economies of the region and remit significant foreign exchange back into their households in India. Accordingly, we have a vital stake in the peace and stability and continued progress and prosperity of the countries in the Gulf. Ensuring this is a major challenge facing our foreign policy today. To our north are the countries of Eurasia, with which we have special relations, based on our common civilizational heritage. The lack of appropriate communications, especially transportation linkages with this region, has acted as a major challenge for us. The proposal for a new Silk Road initiative which would enable the countries and more importantly the peoples of Central and South Asia to restore the vitality of the Silk Road is therefore a paramount importance for us. We are aware of the challenges that are preoccupying the international community, which can adversely impact on the process of Asian reintegration. The global economic crisis, especially in the industrialized nations of the West, has thrown up challenges of constricting export markets and slowdown of inward foreign investment flows from many Asian countries, including India. The issue of climate change is crucial for the socio-economic development plans of all of us, and India is no exception of this. The continuing spread of terrorism, which has its epicenter in the Af-Pak region, is indeed a major challenge to us. However, the process of Asian reintegration has gathered momentum, and India is proud to be part of this process. By moving in gradual and deliberate manner, Asian reintegration has enabled our economies to sustain their growth rates at a time of worrying economic problems in the older industrialized worlds of Europe and North America. In turn, our economic growth has helped lift millions of more people above the poverty line and generated in them viable dreams of a peaceful and prosperous future. It is this vision that drives India's engagement with the world today at the United Nations, especially as a member of the Security Council, representing Asia for a 2-year term since January last year. India has played a constructive role in shaping the emerging international order. Based on our experience and performance, we believe that the time has come for India to become a permanent member of the reformed United Nations Security Council. India has been active in the Security Council on the issue of piracy, which is of great importance to all of us, especially in Asia. We have stressed that there is an urgent need for the international community to address the problem of hostage taking by pirates and consequent humanitarian problem faced by the hostages and their families, and seek their quick release by whatever means appropriate. India remains an active member of Commonwealth. India provides the largest number of technical experts engaged by Commonwealth Fund for Technical Cooperation and extends assistance to developing Commonwealth countries in Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean. India is also playing a meaningful role in the revitalization of non-aligned movement. In the past decade, India has taken several initiatives to respond to the changing world around us. Revitalization of our relations with Africa is one such initiative. At the second India-Africa Forum Summit last year in Addis Ababa, we reiterated our commitment to meaningfully contribute in human resource and institutional capacity building. The Pan-African E-Network project has been commissioned in all the 47 countries that had agreed to join the project. Under this project, India is setting up a fiber optic network to provide satellite connectivity, telemedicine facilities, and tele-education facilities for African countries. Imbued with this vision, India is keen to galvanize the Indian Ocean Rim Association for Regional Cooperation, which brings together 19 littoral states of the Indian Ocean. India assumed the chairmanship of this body at its ministerial meeting held in Bangalore in November last year. I have placed emphasis on the need for building a functional relationship between the navies and the coast guards of member states to enhance cooperation and security in the Indian Ocean region. We have called upon member states to address issues of transport infrastructure and connectivity which hamper the growth of intra-regional trade and investment. We are conscious that cooperation between states acts as a force multiplier in a fast-changing world. With this in mind, India has participated in the creation of transcontinental regional groups to maximize the way in which we can achieve our objective of sustainable development. These groups include the BRICS, which bring together Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. India will be holding the next BRICS summit in New Delhi at the end of this month. It serves as a useful platform for consultation and coordination and promotes mutual trust and understanding among its members on global issues. Similarly, IPSA Dialogue Forum brings together India, Brazil, and South Africa, three developing, pluralistic, multicultural, multi-ethnic, multilingual, and multi-religious democracies from three different continents who face common challenges. I would like to conclude by asserting that we can succeed in making the most of the opportunities for prosperous socio-economic growth by continuing to remain engaged in a process of dialogue. Our dialogue has been greatly helped by setting before us clearly defined objectives, which, whether in terms of trade turnover or greater people-to-people exchanges, above all, we have demonstrated our ability to meet the challenges along the way through calm and mature, meaningful negotiations, which have enhanced trust and confidence between India and our partners across the globe. Well, the address has been rather long, taking into account that the wide variety of issues and the number of countries with which we have relations have been touched upon in the course of this address. I would like to convey my deep appreciation to Professor Renukacharya and his team for giving me this opportunity, and I consider this an honor to interact with all of you, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.
Thank you, Minister. I now invite Mr. Sanjay Singh, Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Republic of India, Indian High Commissioner Dr. T.C. Raghavan, and Professor Tommy Koh, Ambassador at Large, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Singapore, to join Minister S.M. Krishna at the head table for the question and answer session. Ambassador Koh will chair the session. Ambassador Koh, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank Professor Renukacharya for giving me this honor to moderate the Q&A session with Minister Krishna. Before I open the floor for questions, I would like to make 3 points. First, in introducing Foreign Minister Krishna, Professor Tan forgot to mention one thing. And this important thing is that Foreign Minister Krishna began his professional life as a professor of international law. The second thing I want to mention is that I would like to take this opportunity to thank Minister Krishna, Mr. Sanjay Singh, High Commissioner Raghavan for inviting me to the Delhi dialogue last month and for the kindness and hospitality which they extended to me during my brief but happy stay. Minister, you are right to say there is an ASEAN fever in India, and I saw it for myself. The third point I want to make is to thank the Minister for referring to my modest contributions to the election of the marker and path to honor Pandit Nehru. This has been one of my dreams, and I was overjoyed in November when the marker and the path were unveiled by Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh and former Prime Minister Mr. Goh Chok Minister, I hope you agree that to my request to invite Mr. Sanjay Singh and Dr. Raghavan to join the Q&A session, I thought in case any of my friends would ask you an unfriendly question, you have the prerogative of asking Sanjay or Dr. Raghavan. But we will first have 3 friendly questions. I've invited Singapore's former High Commissioner to India, Mr. Sijak Ban, to ask a friendly question.
It's a half-friendly question. Thank you, Minister, for giving us a very comprehensive view of the Indian policy. My question relates to specifically on India and China. I read recently a report called NAM 2.0, submitted by a group of professional policy thinkers in India. The report focused a lot of attention on India and relation with Pakistan and China. Unfortunately, I find that in my view that instead of recommending how to improve relations between India and China, the report went on to recommend how to fight a war with China. So, Mr. Minister, I think the world wants to see a better relation between India and China and can do common good. My specific question is, in which area and in what way can India and China cooperate to act as a positive force, in international relations and in world affairs? Like, for example, you're both in G20, or for example, in maritime security. I would like to hear from you.
Minister, please. Thank you very much, sir. I firmly believe that India and China can coexist together. It was India in the early 60s which propounded the theory of peaceful coexistence. If it was relevant in the 60s during the time of Pandit Nehru and Chou Enlai, I think it is true of 2012, the first decade of the 21st century also, that we need to develop a friendly relationship. Dr. Manmohan Singh said once that there is space both for India and China in the world. And if there is development in both of our countries, because today China and India are recognized as growth engines in the global context. I think it could be
complementary to each other. It need not necessarily be in competition, but it could be complementary to each other. And since I became the Foreign Minister of India in 2009, I have held and I have repeatedly conveyed this to the Indian Parliament and in my discourses in India, that the boundary between India and China is one of the most peaceful and tranquil borders. Well, there are certain incursions frequently reported, and there is a local mechanism which has been put in place so that if there are any reported violations, then I think there is a mechanism which settles the question there itself. It doesn't come up to Delhi or is being taken up by Beijing. Hence it is necessary that we have to look at the India-China relationship in this perspective. Not the perspective, I think the article that he mentioned was sometimes, they project the image of conflicting aspirations of two developing countries. Well, it is not conflicting. It is mutually cooperative effort. And India believes that we continue to do business with China. As I mentioned in my speech, that they are the biggest trading partner with us, and we would like to take it forward.
Thank you, Minister. I requested Dr. Chowdhury, former Foreign Minister of Bangladesh, to ask second friendly question.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Minister, I must begin by applauding what I thought was an extremely thorough expose of the way India relates to her neighbors and also to the world beyond. As you have heard in my previous avatar, I'm now at ISAS, a fellow, but in my previous avatar I had the privilege of serving my country as the Foreign Minister here in the caretaker government. And I'm happy to be able to say that it was under our watch that we were able to bring relations with India on an even keel. I have worked very closely with your predecessor, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, on the subject. And today, I would like to say that it's more than aspiration of a single political party in Bangladesh. It goes beyond to the wider masses who want very good relations with India. You're very right to refer to the visit of the Prime Minister as historic and refer to the number of accords that were signed. Could I draw your attention, however, to one accord that was not signed, and which was with regard to the sharing of Teesta waters. And you would appreciate that there is a burgeoning sense of angst in Bangladesh over this. Do you, sir, see any forward movement on this issue at any time soon?
I think a very systematic talks are going on between Bangladesh and India on a number of issues, and the issues that you mentioned is also one of them. You know that India is a federal country. The Constitution of India clearly defines the powers of the state, the powers of the Union, and there is what is known as the concurrent jurisdiction. Now, water is the exclusive prerogative of the state governments. So we will have to carry the concerned state government when we are dealing with international treaties, and the talks that are going on, I hope will be fruitful, and perhaps that will be the way out. Thank you.
Minister, we can take a question from His Excellency, the Ambassador of the Republic of Korea, Mr. Jun.
Good afternoon, Minister. I'm afraid this might not be considered a friendly question. In a couple of weeks' time, there will be a meeting in Korea called the Nuclear Security Summit. This will be gathering of over 40 countries and international organizations at the summit level to discuss nuclear security. Nuclear security actually means security of nuclear materials. So this does not have much to do with national security through nuclear weapons. But still, India, along with Pakistan, two of the three countries that stayed outside nuclear non-proliferation treaty and usually known to have developed nuclear weapons. So obviously, India has a great deal of stake in this issue. So I would like to know what kind of position does India have when it comes to issues like nuclear security?
Well, India would fully believes that non-proliferation is the way out of this. I think reasonable conditions, equitable conditions should be created so that all countries could sign the non-proliferation treaty. But in the meanwhile, in order to take stock of the fallout, if any, of the developments on the nuclear status of a country, I think it is necessary that we should put our heads together and then try to work out a consensus as to how to safeguard humanity from any possible danger.
I'll take a question from this side of the room. Professor Mooney.
Mr. Minister, thank you very much for a really comprehensive address to us. I have two questions, one on Maldives, one on China. You said on the Maldives about the roadmap which was created by Mr. Mathai's visit. But on his second visit, or since his second visit, the roadmap has not moved forward even an inch. Not only this, Mr. Mathai was blamed, almost accused by the Home Minister of interfering into the internal affairs of Maldives. Do you really see any situation developing there which may be positive for the roadmap to be accepted and implemented and peace and stability order to be restored? About China border, you mentioned, Mr. Minister, that there are differences. Now, I think we have had 18 rounds of talks already, 15 rounds of talks already, and we have successfully maintained tranquility on the border, but not moved on resolving those differences. Where actually are we stuck? And how long do you think it will take for us to resolve this very complicated problem?
Thank you. Minister, on Maldives, could you spend a bit of time explaining to the Singaporean recent developments in the country? Because there is an economic stake by Singapore companies in Maldives. We own some of the resorts. Many Singaporeans holiday in Maldives. After the Indian Ocean tsunami, both civil society and government built a school in Maldives, donated dissemination plans. So there's a lot of interest in the Maldives. But people are very confused by what happened in Maldives recently. could you give us your perspective of what happened, the roadmap, and whether it's true that roadmap has not moved a single inch?
Well, you know, there are certain areas, hot spots, as they are called, and Maldives is one of those. India has an excellent relationship with Maldives, and India believes that the parties who are involved, the political parties in Maldives, are to sit together and then try to work out a positive course of action so that peace and tranquility could be restored in that beautiful island nation. Yes, in the light of the close relationship that India has with Maldives, we took the liberty of sending our Foreign Secretary to help and assist them in whatever way they thought that India could be useful. And it was only after a thorough discussions with all concerned, the roadmap idea came up and the roadmap was provided. Well, in a situation like this, where emotions run high, and when the emotions run high, I think the casualty would be the perspectives for the future. And that is what has happened. Actually, the Foreign Minister of Maldives is coming to Delhi in the course of this month, and I am looking forward to having a detailed discussion with him, and perhaps that also is part of this process of normalizing the relationship in that country. We wish Maldives well because it is a beautiful country, and as Mr. Tommy Coe mentioned, lots of Singaporeans go there, lots of Indians also go there.
But Maldivians also come to Singapore.
Well, who doesn't come to Singapore? Everybody comes to Singapore. Then the second question about China.
About the border.
About yes. I think you would appreciate the fact that the border is a long drawn out. I think running into 1,800 kilometers, miles, 1,800 miles. And then, you know, you have to compare strip maps, and wherever there are certain questions, you know, the questions have to be squarely met, you know. We have had 15 rounds of consultations. I think we have succeeded in a framework agreement, you know. And so having that as the backdrop, I think.
That was in 2005.
No. Now we have. Yes. You can add. So I think it was now that has been agreed upon. So we are moving, you know, the special representatives, you know. When I was in Beijing last month, I had the pleasure of meeting with Devengo, who is the special representative from their side. And they are very, very serious about trying to work out, settle the border issues. But let me confess and convey that this is a very difficult question. and it takes a lot of patience, it takes a lot of perseverance, and India has that patience and perseverance.
Thank you, Minister. I would like to tell Professor Mooney that I'm an optimist on the border issue. And I base my optimism on the fact that China has successfully concluded agreements with all her neighbors on border issues, excepting India and Bhutan. So the conclusion I've drawn from this historical record is that if there is goodwill on both sides, if there's mutually satisfactory solution, I think that will come. So somebody in the back there, and then
my name is J.P. Yaswal. My question to His Excellency, Mr. Krishna. Thank you very much for giving a very brief and precise overview of the policy India has. My question was actually both on the border issue with China, which has been very much clarified. So I believe there has been candid approach from India all along, and I believe the same approach has been from China side. If you can answer that. The most important...
The border question has been raised and answered.
What my question is, there has been a candid approach from India side all along, and whether similar approach persists from China side.
I think you're asking the same question. So thank you for your question.
Yeah, I have answered. I got the answer. The second question is our issues. Always we have so many times talks with Pakistan regarding issue of terrorism and similar attacks keep on going on. If you can candidly answer me, how is the approach from the other side? Otherwise, is there a better alternative solution? Thank you.
Well, your last comment sounded warlike to me. Talk to Pakistan.
Oh yes, very, very much. I'm very happy that the talks between India and Pakistan have gone on very well. When I invited the new Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Her Excellency Ina Rabani Khan, she came to Delhi, and we had an excellent exchange of views, and then she made it very clear, both in private as well as in public, that she comes to India with a new mindset, and that new mindset is that both these countries have to peacefully coexist together and ultimately work our way to become good neighbors. And India's position has always been that we would like to be friendly to every other neighbor in this region, and more particularly with Pakistan. We have fought wars with Pakistan, but I think that was in the earlier century. The 21st century offers immense hope and immense possibilities, and it is only our hope, and it is our earnest hope, that Pakistan will come out of whatever problems they are going through, because it is my turn to go to Pakistan to reciprocate Foreign Minister Ina Rabani Khan's visit to India. I am looking forward to that, and in the meanwhile, let me reiterate India's commitment to the position that we want a stable Pakistan, we want a prosperous Pakistan, we want a Pakistan which is at peace with itself, so that the region itself can find peace and tranquility, friendship. So we wish that.
Thank you, Minister. I promised the Minister to conclude this at 5:40, so we have 5 minutes more. I think there are 2 questions. So can we hear the 3 questions? So can we hear all 3 questions, and then our Minister to respond in a composite way to all 3, please?
Thank you, Prof.
Introduce yourself and brief.
My name is Malminder from the Business Times in Singapore. Minister, I had 2 questions actually. You made a case earlier about India's permanent representation at the UN Security Council, and I think most, if not all of us, would agree with you on that. But there is another 2 areas where India can play a greater role internationally. One is at the forthcoming World Bank presidential nominations. India has been rather silent this time. I mean, you have had nominations for the UN position before, and also indicated interest at IMF last year. I haven't heard anything from New Delhi on the World Bank this time.
Malvinder, what's your question?
Do you have a nomination for that?
World Bank President, is it?
That's right. And the second question, Prof, if you may, is that for the TPP, the US is pushing the TPP quite a bit in this region. We talked about ASEAN architecture earlier. India and China as well are excluded from the TPP. What do you feel about that?
India is not yet a member of APEC.
That's right.
So, not being a member of APEC, India cannot participate in TPP, no?
Yes, right.
So I think the second question, forgive me, not relevant.
Okay.
So first question, is an Indian candidate to succeed Bob Zelig as the next president of the World Bank? Next question. In the back, and then in the front. In the back, please. Microphone.
Excellency, my name is Tang Li. I'm a jobless blogger at the moment. Let me try and ask a few unfriendly questions.
No. Can you just answer one question?
Okay, I'll ask one question.
We run out of time.
Very quickly. India has, you mentioned, has a lot of interactions with the Arab world based on the number of people working there. And of course, we now know that oil is, let's make no secret, oil is a big issue. Do you see India's growing relationship with a situation where India will one day be a counterweight against Western interests, which has all traditionally been pro-Israel and more pro-Arab?
Sorry, I'll repeat your question again.
Okay, my question is, does the minister see a situation where India will become a backer of the Arab world in its dealings with Israel, which has traditionally had the backing of the Western world?
But India enjoys very good relations with India, the Arab world, and Iran. You know,
yes.
Why should India have to pick between each friend?
No, I mean Israel.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll let the Minister answer. Last question.
Minister, you're in.
Second last question.
You're in the Asia Pacific on the Asia Pacific and India's role. Specifically, India recently has had a trilateral with Japan and the United States. There was a suggestion from Australia that there be a quadrilateral that would have included those 3 countries as well as Australia. India, of course, accepted the trilateral. It hasn't seemingly shown much interest in the quadrilateral. So could you say something about that difference in our policy? And secondly, in general, what do you think the India-Japan trilateral is hoping to?
Just so everybody in the room understands your question, by the quadrilateral you mean India, United States, Japan, and Australia. Is that what you're referring to?
Correct. There was an idea that the Australians floated, and there wasn't much receptivity in New Delhi, whereas we are part of the India-Japan-US trilateral. So my question is, why the relative lack of interest in the quadrilateral, and what is the India-Japan-US trilateral really intended to achieve, and what's been happening here?
Okay, last question, please. Front.
So my name is Yasudas Bell. Since you are in this region, East Asia, Southeast Asia, could I ask you about the developing relations between India and Vietnam? I believe there is an agreement on strategic partnership between the 2 countries. How do you see this strategic partnership being improved?
Thank you very much. Let me say just a very question. Let me remind you what the questions are. My friend Malvinder Singh from Business Times is an Indian candidate to succeed Bob Zelig as the next president of the World Bank?
I will answer. Well, India doesn't believe in a competitive approach to these world bodies. I think a solution will have to be found by consensus, by backroom negotiations, and merit being the sole criteria in deciding who should head the World Bank.
I think my question, if I could piggyback on the question, is, has the time come for Asia to demand that the presidency of the World Bank be no longer an American monopoly?
Well, I think that is a statement with which all of us can go along. It should not be. That's the reason why I said it should be based on merit. In the past, United States have their representatives. I think it is necessary for other countries also to come out with suitable names who have the experience, the wisdom, and the international financial understanding and various other things. So I think it should depend upon a consensus approach, and India believes in working towards that consensus.
Minister, the next question is...
It could be an Indian or it could be anybody else. It could be somebody from Singapore also.
Minister, the next question is, will India support the Arabs against Israel?
Well, India doesn't believe in supporting one against the Arabs. That has never been our attitude. I was very recently in Israel. I spent 2 days. I met Prime Minister Netanyahu. I met President, and then I just drove across to Palestine, and then I met with President Abbas. And then again I came back to Israel. So that only shows that India has excellent relationship. I think that should be the spirit with which we will have to address this. But the problem is much old. The problem is almost becoming ancient. So now we will have to think in terms of trying to work out much bigger men did try, starting with President Carter and then President Clinton and various other presidents have tried their very best to bring about a settlement, and it has eluded a settlement. And let us hope in our lifetime there will be a settlement.
May we all live long lives. Mr. Kanti Bajpai, 2 questions. What has the trilateral achieved, and why is India not so keen on the quadrilateral?
Well, every grouping attracts new membership. For example, I was in Cairo, and the leadership of Egypt did propose that they would like to become part of the BRICS. They said, wouldn't it be nice if we call it BRICS? Electronic BRICS or Egypt BRICS. So I think there is nothing wrong for countries aspiring to become member of one grouping or the other grouping. But I think all this BRIC it was earlier. But by consensus, unanimously, we decided just 2 years back that South Africa also could become part of BRICS. So like that, if there could be a consensus which can be worked, then we could add more nations if it serves a purpose and if it is useful.
Last question, Minister, we have good news for the business community on the relationship between India and Vietnam.
Well, we have a very cordial relationship with Vietnam. I went to Vietnam, and the Vietnam president came to India, and the Commerce Minister was in Delhi. So we have a very good relationship with South Vietnam, and we will continue to have the same, strengthen that.
I think this concludes the Q&A session. Minister, not all the questions were equally clear, but you answered all of them very well. And thank you very much for sharing your time.
Thank you, Minister and panelists, for the insightful sharing. Thank you also, Ambassador Ko, for chairing the session. I now invite Mr. Satpal Patel to present 2 books to Minister S.M. Krishna, our panelists, and Ambassador Ko as our token of appreciation for spending their valuable time with us this afternoon.